Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to take information, things you're curious about, and really explore them together. Get right to the heart of it.
Yeah, cut through the noise.
Exactly. And today, wow, you've brought us a story that's, well, it's chilling. The 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm.
A moment where everything nearly changed.
We're digging into this using materials from the National Park Service about Stanislav Petrov and also his Wikipedia page.
Good sources to piece this together.
Our mission, then, is to really get the details, understand this man, Petrov, and just feel the tension of that moment. Because the stakes, they couldn't have been higher.
And you absolutely have to picture the context. September 1983. It was only, 3 weeks after the Soviets shot down that Korean airliner KL-007.
Terrible incident.
Terrible. And it meant Cold War tensions were sky high. Trust, basically zero. There was this real, tangible fear in the air.
Yeah, you can almost feel it looking back. And into that atmosphere steps Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, from 1939, died in 2017.
And on this specific day, September 26, 1983, he's the duty officer.
Not just any duty officer, he's at the command center for OKO, the Soviet Nuclear Early Warning System.
The nerve center. I mean, imagine being that guy on that shift, the weight of it.
Seriously, the fate of, well, potentially the world resting on his watch.
So picture this command bunker. Suddenly this system, it starts reporting a missile launch from the US.
Just one at first.
One blip, then another, then more. Up to 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles apparently heading straight for the Soviet Union.
Oh my God, you can just imagine the alarms, the lights, the absolute panic that must have gripped that room.
Pure, unadulterated fear. But here's where Petrov does something incredible. Protocol screamed, report it. Attack imminent.
The procedure, right? The one drilled into everyone for exactly this nightmare scenario.
Exactly. But Petrov, he hesitates. He looks at the screens, feels the pressure, and makes this gut call. It's a false alarm.
He decides against everything.
He decides not to report it up the chain as a confirmed attack. In that instant, one man against the machine, potentially saving millions, billions of lives.
So why? How could he possibly make that call under that kind of pressure? What was going through his head?
Well, according to the Wikipedia info, several things just didn't add up for him. First, the nature of the attack.
Oh, so?
His training, his understanding was if the U.S. launches a first strike, it's going to be overwhelming. Hundreds of missiles, maybe thousands, not 5.
Oh, okay. 5 missiles felt illogical. Too small for a genuine first strike.
Exactly. It just didn't fit the doomsday playbook he'd been trained on. Plus, there was the system itself. Okay.
You mentioned it was new.
Relatively new, yeah. And Petrov apparently had some engineering background, maybe a bit more technical insight. He wasn't entirely convinced it was, infallible.
A healthy skepticism, perhaps?
You could say that. And then there was the speed. The alert signals seemed to confirm through all 30 layers of verification incredibly fast, almost too fast.
So the speed itself was suspicious to him. That's counterintuitive.
Right. You'd think faster is better, more certainty. But for him, it felt rushed, maybe superficial, like the system hadn't really done its checks properly.
Okay, so the number of missiles felt wrong. The system wasn't fully trusted. The verification seemed too quick. Anything else?
Oh, yes. The big one? Maybe. Ground radar. The next crucial layer of confirmation.
What did it show?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even after minutes passed, and imagine how long those minutes felt, the ground-based radar systems detected 0 incoming objects, no corroborating evidence at all.
Wow, so the satellites are screaming attack, but the eyes on the ground are saying clear skies. That's a massive contradiction.
Huge. And the tension in that room, just unimaginable. Technology versus, other technology and maybe his own gut feeling.
He apparently mentioned later that his civilian training, maybe that engineering mindset, helped him see the flaws, that military colleagues might have just, followed the light, reported the launch as ordered.
It's plausible. Different training could lead to different reactions under extreme stress. He himself said something like, I had obviously never imagined I would ever face that situation.
What?
He said it was the first, and as far as he knew, the last time it happened outside of simulations. Facing the potential end of the world, deciding if it's real or just a glitch.
And incredibly, his judgment, his courage to break protocol, it was right.
Absolutely right. The Wikipedia source explains what they eventually figured out. It was this incredibly rare alignment of sunlight.
Sunlight?
Yeah, sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds over North Dakota, hitting the Molny satellites just right. The system interpreted this reflection as the heat signature of missile launches.
That's unbelievable. A trick of the light almost caused nuclear war.
A freak cosmic coincidence. They later fixed it, apparently, by cross-referencing with geostationary satellites that had a stable view, less prone to that kind of angular reflection issue.
So when you think about the consequences, what he prevented,
It's staggering. He's widely credited with stopping an erroneous Soviet retaliatory strike, which, given the tensions, could easily have escalated into full-scale nuclear war with the US and NATO.
we're talking global catastrophe, avoided by one man's hesitation.
The margin was razor thin that night, terrifyingly thin.
But the Wikipedia page does mention there's some debate about how direct his impact was, right, within the whole Soviet system.
Yes, that's important context. The official Russian stance, stated at the UN years later, was basically that one source, like Petrov's Oko system, wouldn't automatically trigger launch. They claimed multiple confirmations were needed: ground radar, other satellites, intelligence.
So they're saying even if he had reported it, war wasn't guaranteed.
That's their argument. But then you have experts like Bruce G. Blair, who specialize in this stuff. He argued the opposite.
What was his take?
Blair said the US-Soviet relationship was so toxic, so hair-trigger, that the Soviet system was basically primed to expect an attack and launch back fast. In that scenario, Petrov buying those crucial minutes by not reporting immediately, that could have been everything.
Makes sense. In a launch on warning posture, any delay is critical.
Then there's Oleg Kalugin, a former KGB general. He worried less about mistaken retaliation and more about the Soviet leadership thinking, this is it, they're attacking, we need to strike first before we lose our missiles.
A preemptive strike based on the false alarm, another terrifying possibility.
But then again, another expert, Pavel Podvig, suggests there were more checks and balances. Multiple command levels above Petrov had to assess the data. Podvig thinks it's unlikely they'd launch retaliation until actual nukes started detonating on Soviet soil.
So different views on the mechanics, but everyone agrees it was an incredibly dangerous moment.
Absolutely, and whatever the exact chain of command, the immediate aftermath for Petrov himself was intense.
Intense grilling, I imagine. Both sources mention that.
Oh yeah, questioned heavily by superiors. There are even conflicting stories. Some say initial praise and promises of a reward.
For saving the day.
Maybe. But others say he was reprimanded, chewed out for not following protocol to the letter, for messy paperwork, essentially.
Reprimanded for not starting World War III? That seems harsh.
Well, the National Park Service source points out his judgment call exposed big flaws in their shiny new warning system. That embarrassed people, high-ranking people.
Ah, so rewarding him would mean admitting the system failed badly.
That's what Petrov himself seemed to believe. He never got an official reward. He thought it was to save face for his bosses and the scientists who built the faulty system.
What happened to him then, career-wise?
He was moved to a less sensitive post. He took early retirement later, though he insisted it wasn't forced.
And the personal cost? Wikipedia mentions a nervous breakdown.
Reportedly, yes. The sheer stress, the pressure, the questioning, it apparently took a heavy toll on him personally. Completely understandable.
And the world knew nothing about this for years.
Nothing. As the NPS site says, it stayed classified for over a decade. Just imagine, we were all blissfully unaware of how close we came.
Until 1998, when General Votintsev's memoirs came out.
That's right. That's when the story finally broke. And then, slowly, very belatedly, Petrov started getting some recognition.
What kind of recognition?
Well, Wikipedia lists quite a few things. The Association of World Citizens gave him their award twice, I think. He met Walter Cronkite.
The famous news anchor.
Yeah. And incredibly, in 2007, he visited the US and toured a Minuteman missile site. Can you imagine? He apparently said something like he was visiting one of the enemy's securest sites. The irony.
That is quite something. Then there was a documentary, right?
Yes. The Man Who Saved the World, premiered around 2014, really brought his story to a wider audience. People online even started calling September 26th Stanislav Petrov Day.
Deservedly so. Any formal awards?
He got the Dresden Peace Prize in 2013, a German Media Award in 2011. Important recognition.
Good. It feels right that he got some acknowledgement, even if late.
And even after he passed away, he received the Future of Life Award posthumously in 2018. His daughter, Elena, accepted it.
It's good to know his family was there for that. Wikipedia mentions his wife Reza passed earlier, and he had a son, Dmitry, too.
Yes, that's right. He died himself on May 19, 2017 from pneumonia. But strangely, it wasn't widely reported until September of that year. A quiet end, really.
He seemed like a quiet, humble man throughout.
Absolutely. He always downplayed it, said it was just his job. He was just the right person, right place, right time. Apparently, his wife didn't even know about the incident for 10 years.
Kept it secret even from her. Incredible.
Just did his duty, faced the consequences, and kept quiet.
What an extraordinary story we've unpacked here. This dive really highlights that moment of just knife-edge tension, a potential global nightmare averted by one person's calm, reasoned defiance of the blinking red lights.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About systems, about automation, about human judgment in moments of crisis. How much do we rely on the tech, and how much space is there for that human element when the stakes are, well, planetary?
Yeah. Petrov's story is such a stark, suspenseful reminder of how fragile things can be, how close the world might have come, totally unknowingly. It makes you wonder what other close calls might still be hidden in history.
A sobering thought.
Definitely. And for listeners really drawn into the story, Wikipedia notes there's a novel inspired by it called The Redemption of Comrade Petrov by Eduardo Squiglia. Might be worth checking out.
Could be fascinating.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's certainly left me with a lot to think about. The weight of that single decision, the silence that followed. It's profound.
Absolutely. A story that shouldn't be forgotten.